Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Clara Lee. I'm the Chief of Data Science and Digital Sustainability of NUS-ISS. So this morning, the theme is From Overworked to Overjoyed after AI. So we heard so much about job replacement, automation, AI taking us our job, AI doing this and doing that. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. So this morning, I'm inviting you to take a pause, to reflect what is really uniquely human rather to feel that things are taking away from you. So what is the true value of being human in an AI-driven world? So you will hear from 3 thought-provoking speakers, and we will be talking about imagining 2 days work week, then empathy for AI, before AI, and finally, the skills that machine cannot replace. Then we will close with a short panel or simply answer your questions. So let's start. Can you just take down this QR code for you to post question? And then I will refresh this QR code later on. Okay?
That's a good question to start with.
Okay, let me introduce our first speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce you our first speaker, Sudhir Tiku. He is a very supportive friend. We met many times in different conferences as speakers. He is a distinguished technologist, a futurist, and also an AI ethics advocate. So he brings over decades of leadership in automation and building technologies. He is currently holding 2 positions, Managing Director of Keenfinity Group and also Vice President of Bosch, covering Asia Pacific and China. He is also a very active TEDx speaker, bringing the world of technology and humanity together. So later this month, Sudhir will launch his book, Snake in the Garden, a powerful blend of fiction and futurism, exploring the moral challenges of our tech-infused world. So in today's talk, he will tell you more about the case, or he will convince you that it is possible to work 2 days a week. So without further ado, Sudhir.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. So, that was a very kind introduction, Clara, but I just wanted to reintroduce myself for setting up perspective. I come from a time when Apple was a fruit. Python was a snake. And Amazon was still a jungle. And then my father worked for 6 days. His idea was to work for 7 days, but then my mom came in the picture and luckily he listened to her. So things have changed, right? Things have changed in the last 20, 30 years tremendously in terms of tech adoption, and also how we think. And maybe I start with a small thought experiment with all of you, where you'll be forced to think. Right? It's very simple, but I encourage all of you to give me the answer. Humans think linearly, right? We are capable of thinking linearly. We cannot think logarithmically or exponentially because we don't have that cognitive budget. So if I tell each one of you, let's take 30 steps to the right or to the left in this room, where will you reach? Simple. We'll bump into the wall, right? 20, 30 steps here, 20, 30 steps here, we'll bump into the wall. Now I encourage you to think this. Let's take 30 steps exponentially. Exponentially means every step doubles. First step, then 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, then 32, 64. Each step is doubling on the previous step. Where exactly can you reach? Make a guess. Malaysia? No? Thailand maybe? No? Mars. Elon Musk. Guys, you will reach. He was close. We'll reach to the edge of the moon. Edge of the moon. And that's the power of exponential thinking, and that is the power of exponential technologies, that the scale that they gain is so much that we don't get time to retrain ourselves. And I think that's the crux of what's also happening in the current times, right? But anyway, now moving from philosophy into encouraging you to work less, and that's my presentation. Let's start. I think these guys, maybe you know them, you don't know them. On the top is Henry Ford, the guy who started the 6 days work as a concept structurally, because he started making cars in factories, and that time performance was equal to presence. If you had to perform, you had to be present in the factory, on the floor, right? This was 1926, right? Almost 100 years back. And then there was Keynes, the economist, and he wrote this brilliant essay that time. This essay is called the Possibilities for Our Grandchildren. You should look it up. And he said in 1930 that by 2030, humans would be only working 15 hours a week. He could think about it 100 years back. And of course, Henry and he did not gel well, because Henry wants us to work 6 days in a week. Then what happened that Henry was a brilliant entrepreneur, right? The Ford company. So he then said, all right, guys, let's do one thing. 6 days looks too much. Let's do 5 days. You know why? Because on the 6th day, he wanted you to buy his cars. The showroom time. Weekend became the showroom time. That's how the consumerism came up. And hence, we became a part of an ecosystem which was factory-based, which was presence-based, which was based on how much time you spend working with the machines. It was not value-based, it was not output-based. It was, but broadly, you had to be present. Presence became the marker of your commitment. Presence became the marker of your passion for work, and presence became how you will proceed in your career. Then down the line came the banks. Money came in the system, and the banker told us the story that every month, at the end of the month, put your salary in the bank, you'll get 3% interest, and an ecosystem emerged, right? So we are part of a simulation and an ecosystem wherein our performance is based on presence, and our performance is based on how much coffee we drink on Monday morning, which is not an easy day, right? So if you ask me, sorry to use this word, 6 days work is a scam. Because I'm going to prove now that whatever we are doing in 6 days, we can very well do in 2 or 3 days, and still have time for community, still have time for mentorship, still have time for culture, still have time for things that you wanted to do, which you are not able to do, right? Okay. There was one more guy, the third guy. I did not put his picture here. Yeah, his name was Russell, Bertrand Russell, the philosopher. And he said, he also wrote a brilliant essay in the same time. For me, 1926 to 32, it's the same kind of a time which we are facing now, because horses lost jobs, right? They were running the transportation industry, and then came the cars, and stuff happened. So it was a very interesting time. And this guy wrote an essay, and it is called In Praise of Idleness. And the philosopher says is that leisure is one of the most important activities of human life. And unfortunately, all of us have lost that, right? We lost attention, we lost leisure, right? Because of the 6-week kind of a weekend that we are having. So you now understood that industrial revolution started this kind of concept that you are seeing. Henry Ford, I told about Henry Ford, and now it has become a cultural kind of a storyline, is that your working for 6 days in a week or 5 days in a week is your identity, right? It gives you pride, it gives you honor, The first thing when we introduce a person to another person is not that what is your hobby or what is your purpose of life. It is that where do you work, right? So work has become larger than life. And actually, and when I say this, I get trolled, we were not built for work. We were built for well-being. But we lost it somewhere, and work took over. And there are economic reasons for that. Of course, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not asking you to now start doing yoga from tomorrow, full day. What I'm trying to tell you is that how it all got set up and how it is so concentrated now and how to break this mold needs an exponential kind of thinking. With our normal kind of thinking that we do, you will work like this for the next 100 years, your children. Like my father did, working 7 days a week. So we need some exponential kind of thinking and challenge that why are we working 6 days, understand the drivers, create a pipeline of structure, and then make some use cases and make some case studies which are already happening and which I talk about, right? So I encourage you to also challenge me, but also think a bit wider today in the morning. So now what comes in AI, right? Artificial intelligence, where A is no more artificial, right? It is generative. You are aware. It can generate text. It can generate content. It can generate code. It can generate a lot of things. It still cannot generate what you can generate, but it's very powerful. And it can take a job is made of tasks, right? And many tasks are repetitive, and many tasks are tasks which don't need judgment, right? You learn it one time and then you can just repeat it, right? And that's why, yeah, I encourage the younger kids who are coming out of colleges that don't be disappointed because it's not bleak, because with structured learning interventions, they can still excel in life. But if we now chase repetitive kind of jobs and I want to be a data entry operator, of course I have no chance in life. So the kids also have to think a bit exponentially now and understand that what are the areas where AI can become their complementary tool, not substitute them. So it's also a thinking game now. Yeah, what do you do in life, right? So comes in AI, and then with AI, a job, if it has 10 tasks, maybe 6 of the tasks it takes over and does it at scale, no cost. That has happened, right? And that has happened, and that's why the productivity of work can be possibly now measured in output, value, and not presence. That's possible now. And also one thing that is kind of will drive this is that as humans, there is also this pull and push towards mental health, burnout. Yeah. 100 years back, they were working, Henry Ford asked them to work only for the 6 days and not 7 days. You know why not the 7th day? Because they would break the machines on the 7th day. We have a capacity to work, right? If we now work for 7 days and there is no rest, yeah, there will be Luddites. Yeah, they will break the looms. So this burnout as a social marker is extremely important. So with 6 days a week, we are passing time, and there are studies that which was done in Japan. Microsoft did it in 2019. So what they did, it was a very interesting. They shut down the office on Friday. Every Friday the office is shut, and they just wanted to measure what happens. Productivity increased by 40%. This is documented. You can look this up. Productivity went up by 40%. Electricity bill, of course, will come down by 23%. But something more interesting happened. The printing cost came down by 60% by just one day. And I think the guys who have kids at home, they know why. When there's a school project of 300 pages, most of us would print it from the office. Then there was one more interesting study done in Iceland. They said 1% of the workforce And you'll be surprised, only 25,000 people then, 2015. They ran this for 4 years. They said that we will cut work by 4 hours in the start, from 40 hours to 36 hours, and over 4 years document it, right? And what they found out is that there was no sense or a symbol or any feeling of workers wanting to while away time when they had 4 hours less. In fact, they became more productive in the 36 hours that they were doing. Mental health improved, leaves reduced, and hence in 1920 they decided that for all the workforce, 36 hours is the week. And I don't know if you know, Norway in autumn of 2024 made 4 days the week. In Norway, if you are lucky and if you become a resident there, you don't have to work for 5 days now, only 4 days. And per capita productivity of Norway rivals Japan. Right? So we have to break free from this comfortable cage that we are in and come to a situation where we are working less. 2 days a week will not happen tomorrow. It will happen in structurally in stages. Maybe 40 hours becomes 36 hours as Iceland did, and then the 5 days, and then the 4 days, and then the 3 days. But imagine the cost of environment. Now we have so many offices throughout the world, and the cost of energy is so much. So this will unleash productivity not only in terms of how humans work, but also in terms of how we consume energy. There are no definite studies right now that what it will mean to data centers, for example, where we are using copious amount of water to cool the data centers. That there is no good study on that from a shortened V. There is a study around AI, because to train the AI models, you train billions of parameters. It is consuming a lot of energy, which we don't talk about, right? So that also is a positive impact or an effect of if you continue, or if you push and challenge that why should we not work for lesser, because your productivity is better now. Another study depicts that when we work for 5 days in a week, we waste 2 days. I'm deliberately using the word waste, 2 days in planning meetings about meetings. So we first plan the meeting, and then we decide what to do, who will come in the meeting. And around 2 days in a week are spent on meetings about meetings, right? And hence, if we look at it very structurally, I think we can, whatever you are doing in your work place, you can very well do it already in 3 days. And then, of course, the AI comes in and then shortens it to 2 days, right? Yeah, there is a shift already. Yeah, I explained all of this. There is remote work. Yeah, AI becomes your PhD student in your pocket now, as we say it, and analytical tasks and decision making and judgment and reading between the lines can be left to you, right? So, and AI takes the rest of the stuff. So this, I want to debunk this productivity myth that more hours is more output. That is no more there. There is no study which confirms this, and hence, and even 4-week trials that we did show that it is not like that, right? And then the 2 weeks life, as I explained to you, gives you better work-life balance. You can spend your time on purposeful tasks, like we don't do volunteering now these days because we are so busy. Community, raising kids properly, passing on values, morals, that all can come into play, right? I explained about the Microsoft thing, right? The Iceland trials and also Sweden trials, and in Asia also, I think governments are thinking about doing trials about reduced week, right? So now one question which can come to your mind is that, okay, now if I will work for 2 days a week, will my salary reduce, right? That's a question coming to your work. I think the answer is nuanced right now, is because we're in a capitalistic kind of a society. Unless you don't have good view of your rights and what's happening to productivity, yeah, there is a chance that somebody may scam you and say that now you are only working for 2 days and now you will be paid less. But don't. You need to push back and explain is that I'm working 2 days, but I'm giving the same kind of an output. So that also needs a lot of understanding and a lot of understanding of productivity matrices. And as a human, we have to be more aware now in the age of AI. So I give a very simple roadmap. Audit your task profile, job profile. We shift from presence-based KPIs to output-based KPIs. We start with hybrid modeling, and then we also have to address this around policy, yeah, in governments, in corporations, and create a policy where we are working less, but our economic rights as a worker are not getting impacted. Right? And then what do we do with the time left? There are so many things that you can do. Personal growth is my favorite. We become lifelong learners, right? And especially for the younger kids. Yeah, and then life becomes really more meaningful and purposeful in that sense, right? So the 5-day work was built for factories, not for cloud, where we are now, and hence I encourage all of you to challenge the way you work, and hopefully in the panel we can have more discussion. Thank you. I think, yeah, okay. I think this will come to you. Sudhir. Thank you. Yes.
So thank you, Sudhir. Let me introduce Jatin Khosla, co-founder and CEO of Konigle, is a Singapore-based startup. Konigle is already empowering small businesses across 79 countries to compete and grow. As a passionate entrepreneur and technologist, Jatin is driven by a very clear mission. He wants to make internet and digital technologies work harder for small businesses, trying to help them to remove barriers, equip them with simple, effective tools to grow their business globally. He's also the author of the book, Empathy is All You Need. It is a call for human-centered thinking in the increasing AI-driven world. Please join me welcome the founder who leads with purpose and built with empathy, Jatin Khosla, to talk about empathy first, then AI comes later.
Thanks. Hello. Yeah. Thanks a lot for coming so early in the morning to listen to me. It's like it's a privilege. Yeah. So, and the other thing is that now I'm the second Indian on stage. Our Prime Minister just visited India, so it's like a week of India. So, yeah. Anyways, so let me just quickly start my talk. Empathy first, AI second for SMEs. And everybody today, we are living in this AI age, which has actually started because of a research paper by folks at Google, which was called like Attention is All You Need. And that was meant to help Google create. So when you go to Google and translate a sentence, hello to Chinese, so it would basically, this was the AI model that would help them do that. So essentially this model was built to translate languages. Little did we know that it would end up where we are today. And when we think about attention is all we need, we need to understand how does it help fundamentally people who cannot actually read that research paper or apply AI properly. And that's what drives us and our company to kind of build products, right? So here are some of my learnings based on the context of who we serve.
Sorry, just in case. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So before I start, all characters appearing in this talk are real. And any resemblance to a real person or machine, living or dead, is purely intentional. Right? The folks in this room must have seen this image on social media, LinkedIn, some time ago, where OpenAI, who is the maker of the chatbot that almost everybody in this room would have used. Can we have a raise of hands who has used ChatGPT in this room? Like 100%, right? And they are in the business where if you ask their CEO, it's like the job of a content strategist is gone. You don't need a human being to write content anymore because ChatGPT will write it for you. And they put out this $400,000 a year job post asking people to apply for a job to be a content strategist for ChatGPT, right? This is the second famous LLM. I don't know if people have used it. It's called Claude. A lot of programmers who would have used this already. If you go to their hiring page, they explicitly say, please don't use AI to write your job application to us. When everybody in this room, I am sure, would have used AI to write a job application at some time, right? Something doesn't add up, right? So here's my only takeaway to all of you. Almost everything on the internet is agenda driven. At least verify from 3 different places before believing anything. And please verify the previous statement too. Right? And whatever I say next, right? So before we kind of go deeper into, there are 2 keywords in my talk, generative AI and empathy. So let us define generative AI. This is a practical definition. This is not a technical definition. This is me in school/university a few years ago. This image is generated using generative AI. I am sitting one day before an exam of a subject that I don't care about. Most likely biology. I hated it. But I have to pass this exam. So what I do, one day before, I figure out from my friends 20, 25 questions that most likely are going to come up in the exam. And I basically sit down and just mug them, right? Some of us may have done this before. And what happens at the end of the exam? Invariably, I score almost 100 marks. And this is true. I have examples of this in my parents will have those mark sheets. They proudly keep with them. And then I look like an expert, right? What if this is not just me? This is an LLM, and it is basically mugged up the entire internet, right? So your chat GPT is essentially this. It has read, learned, mugged up the entire internet. And when you ask it a question, you think it is God. And you basically become addicted to it because it will quickly answer you things and it will look super smart. But fundamentally, it does not know anything. This is an LLM. This is the practical definition of generative AI. As of 5th September, whatever, like 10 a.m. or yeah, it may change, but as of today, this is what the practical definition of generative AI is. So what is this generative AI? Essentially what it is that it has learned everything on the internet, it mugs, but it has no original thinking. It is very good to translate from one language to the other, which was the original intent of when Google built this, right? And that is one of the reasons why jobs of tech people and people are scared go, because now you don't need to learn the programming language. You can talk in English and it can infer what you want and do it. Therefore, internally in our company, we call this artificial inference, not intelligence. Now, the second keyword of my talk, empathy. We have various definitions of empathy. And one of the most misunderstood definition of empathy is that we have to be nice to everyone. Actually, that's not true, according to what we believe. This is a 2x2 matrix. 2x2 matrices are very famous by McKinsey. They invented these. And what we do is we plot empathy on the x-axis and curiosity on the y-axis. And we kind of think and believe internally inside our company, and what we have learned in the last 5 to 6, 7 years, that if you really have to be truly empathetic, you have to have very high curiosity as a person. And if you're highly curious, you will be highly empathetic. It's like directly proportional. If you want to read more, I can make some money. You can scan this QR code and read this book. This has got a lot of stories. It's a storybook of what truly empathy is, explained in different ages, starting from the 1900s, 1800s, etc. And these are also stories of real people, but not their real names are not there. So fundamentally what we believe, empathy is leaving something better than you find it. If you are at work, you do a presentation which was better of a colleague, then you got it. If you are building software for SMEs, we would not just want to provide software to SMEs, but also leave the SMEs better off than when we found them. And that is what drives us. So here is a story of an SME. This is a story of Jimmy. He's a flower merchant. What he does, he sells flowers online, right? This is a screenshot from his, so as a company, Konigle, we provide them ability to sell online. And this is like a payment, you must have checked out, this is a checkout screen of a website hundreds of times in your life, right? But what is so unique about this? The thing unique about this is that this, and just to give you a bit more context. So the way Konigle works for customers is that they can send an email and they can get their job done. So for example, if they want to change on their website on how the website is built, they can send in a request, then the Konigle's AI will respond to them on email and do the job for them. So Konigle is like a co-worker for them, and the way they interact with it is using generative AI. They type their needs and it is done for them. So this person has this checkout screen, and on this checkout screen, typically when you check out on a portal, you would have this option that your old addresses are saved so that the next time you can check out faster. This is a very common theme that most of people have seen. So this guy, Jimmy, reaches out to our AI and says that, please provide me an option of deleting the addresses. And then the AI asks, why do you want to do that? It doesn't help your customers. But then what happens is this thing gets flagged to us, human beings in the company. And then we see, and then we realize what is happening here. So Jimmy, because he's an SME, cannot afford multiple pieces of software. He's using his website as a POS. And he manually goes in and adds order for all people. So under his account, there are like 100 addresses. And then he can't find an address. So he wants the ability to delete the address. So now, what we did, we provided him an option of hiding the addresses rather than deleting the addresses. And this is where we understood. So we walked in the shoes of Jimmy. We understood what he was trying to do, rather than just purely telling him that this can be done or this can't be done. And this is the power of generative AI in today's world, where we can offer them the ability to quickly change these things while also understanding why they are trying to do this. And this is the most important thing. And yes, he's a customer of ours. Every time you buy from them, we make money. So if you want to buy flowers, scan the QR code, right? Flowers are good. Then we talk about Nico. Now this guy runs a restaurant, right? He runs a restaurant. Typically, he came to Konigle, said, can you build me an ordering system? It's a very simple thing. We go scan a QR code, order food, simple. Then what happened? After launching his restaurant, he realized a lot of elderly people are coming and they cannot pay using QR code. So what he said, please provide me a way where I can order for elderly people. So then Konigle added an elderly mode for his backend, where he could order on the behalf of those old people visiting his store. And this he never realized until he started his restaurant. But with the power of generative AI, he could quickly make this change in days, not months, right? And by the way, he's running this restaurant where he's chasing a world record. He wants to serve 1 million prawn noodles in the next 1.5 years. Please scan QR code, visit the restaurant, buy prawn noodles from him, right? Every time you buy from him, we make money, right? So going back to the initial post where OpenAI or they are asking human beings to help them write content. This is a very common example in everybody's job as a knowledge worker. Please help me write a blog post on red roses. You go to any LLM, this is Gemini, it will oblige, will write a blog post for you, right? Similarly, some of our customers also reach out to our AI. Please help me write a blog on red roses. Now the difference with us is that our AI just does not write the blog post, but it also puts it on the website, does your SEO, makes it proper, puts in images, etc., etc. But when he writes this, if you ask an AI to write a blog post, they do not, what value does it add to you or your website or your business? Nothing. So that's where when our AI, because it understands what they want, is empathetic, it will ask them that, you know what, you want to write a blog, but first let us know what are your unique insights about it. And then I will help you frame it. And this is where the human comes in. This is where you can use AI, but you need to understand the reasoning behind it, right? Like how you would like to, like this is the empathy actually. So as a company, as a product, yes, we have all the keywords. We are powered by LLMs. We have agent frameworks, RAG, and many more that will come. But all our products, if you saw, like our entire AI is delivered over email, just like a coworker, not on a chatbot. All AIs are chatbots. Ours is over email. And this is what we understood, that if we ask a SME owner to give inputs on a chatbot, they will most likely give one-line sentences and the AI will then hallucinate. But if you ask them to write an email, they will sit on the desk, wear a formal shirt, drink water, think about it, write a proper email with context, and then the AI will not hallucinate. So in fact, when we do our AI, we are not training the AI, we are training the human being, right? And this is me 7 years ago. When we started our company, you can go back and see this talk. I was talking about how you can build a chatbot to talk to your invoices and improve your business. This was 7 years ago. We had no idea that this would be the norm that everybody in the room will be using. At that time, it was a challenge for us to tell people to use AI to do your work. Now, everybody is asking for it, right? So this is how the evolution has happened but the fundamentals are still the same. That at that time also we realized that if you have a chatbot and you ask it to do whatever, people will not really make good use of it. You need to have a cause of how you use it, right? So in a nutshell, we think it is the yin and yang. Empathy and AI are an yin and yang. If generative AI is a way to do your job, empathy is a way to think about how you do your job. And this is what drives us, this is what we use, and this is what is helping us provide SMEs with the tools to be competitive and offer a 7-star experience to their customers, which helps them make more money and us also more money. So before we end, there's a confession to make from my side. I got this instruction that please wear long pants for this talk. This is an executive school. Because usually I don't even like to wear long pants, right? This is very inconvenient for me. I can tell you how inconvenient this is for me. Most likely after this, I'm going to go and change back into my shorts, right? So I have this is a lot of work, right? So I thought there was, sorry, something's wrong. Yeah, it's too much work for me. So actually after this, there was a QR code to provide feedback. So what I was trying to tell you was that please provide feedback, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Jatin. So we come to our last speaker, Ivan. And he has the toughest job. I asked him, can you conclude and help us to reflect and inspire us? Okay? So Ivan is a respected voice in the technology leadership community. Oh, let me just move his. Okay. He's known not just for his experience, but his clear, practical, and grounded perspectives on what truly matters in tech transformation. As a Chief Technology Officer in City Developments Limited, Ivan leads digital strategy in a global business, and he has built a reputation for cutting through noises, brings sharp insight to the complex intersection among business, people, and technology. So today, he's going to talk about, in the AI era, what is left for us. So, Ivan, please.
Can you hear me? Okay, I have to say that before I start, I realize how outgunned I am. I'm probably the only person with no books today, right? But really good to see every one of you. It's so wonderful to see people, come so early trying to learn about this thing that we call AI, right? And today, and I think that Clara definitely gave me the toughest session, because I'm here to talk about a topic that is going to be slightly uncomfortable, right? It's going to be also very tough, and I don't claim to have the solution, right? But the question is, Sudhir and Jatin has talked about how wondrous AI is, right? The impacts it has on small, medium businesses. You can get to a 2-day work week, right? But my topic is really what's left for us, right? And really the human value in the AI era. And this is the question. I put it deliberately, right? What's left for us when machines can do almost everything? And before I get into it, let me just say I'm a technology optimist. I have to be. I spent three decades doing this thing, right? Technology, AI, is going to help us in a lot of ways. A lot of it is going to be freeing up a lot of us having to do routine tasks, right? The things that you don't want to do. I think Sudhir mentioned this. Planning meetings for meetings, Those things exist, and we do all this all the time, and then we are too busy. So AI is going to give us back something that is most precious to all of us, is time. Time to reflect, time to innovate, and time to take care of what the real challenges to humanity is, right? The things like climate change, things like healthcare in an aging population, things like reducing inequality. How do you close the education gap that exists today? And these are really tough challenges that we all have, and we all know. But you know what? We are all too busy. And when we get to the 2-day work week, right, as Sudhir mentioned, then we may not be so busy and we have time to go and do this. But I have to say this, at the end of it, I'm also very confident that as humans in this room, we are perfectly capable of creating more problems, right? So there's no shortage of things to do. Don't worry about that, right? But let me get back to here, right? So amidst all these things, yet we still have to ask ourselves, if the machines can now code, can write, can analyze, can design at levels that that surprises me. I was looking at it and I was, wow, this is really competent. And this is just starting. Then the question is, what's left for us? And I think this is a time for us to reflect. And this discussion about AI displacement, I think, is real, right? But let me just say that there are other things at play, but I want to just draw our attention to how we perceive work, right? When we talk about job displacement, when we talk about work changing, I think, if you look at, many years ago, it was agriculture, it was industrial. In those days, what was prized was really labor, right? Muscles, if you will, right? Whether it's from a human or from animals, you want to get things from A to B, you want to do things and build things in a factory, those things happen. And then we move on to the information age. And this is where knowledge is priced. The fact that you know something gives you an edge. The fact that your company knows something that other companies don't know gives you an edge. And that's price. And now we move on to this AI era. And AI with robots, with everything else, now your machines are able to replicate both the muscles and the knowledge. And this is not meant to be, make you depressed and all that. But this is really for us to really look at the reality of how things are changing, right? So I think the future will belong to those people who are able to harness AI to amplify our human quality, right? And I'm going to touch on this thing that, I'm sorry the background didn't come out the way it is. But really, as we look at AI, I think our humanity is going to be our greatest strength, okay? So the title of this, if you can't read, is Don't Compete with the Machines, because there's no way you can win in terms of scale, in terms of speed. It's just, at this point in time, already capable, it's just going to get better and better. I don't think it's something we should do. I think what we need to do is to find the skills that the machines cannot replicate. I mean, suggestions from Jatin, empathy, right? Things like that. And then, therefore, we use AI not to try to replace what AI can do, but really using AI to help us to do our work better. And this is not the first time you're hearing it, I guess. But I'm going to suggest 3 human skills that I think is going to be quite important for us in the next era. The first is questions, right? Questions, asking better questions. I think this is something that's hugely important. Judgment. How do you navigate ambiguity and be able to decide what is worth doing or not? And the third is meaning, right? I think only humans can understand why we are doing certain things. And that's really the purpose behind things. I'm not sure why it came out like that. The first few slides was okay, but later on, I think there was a problem. Okay, so I think asking better questions, and all of you has used ChatGPT, right? You use a chatbot, you go in and you type in your question, it gives you answers. You type in another one, it gives you answers. AI can give you hundreds of answers, thousands of answers. But, throughout human history, the answers don't create the breakthroughs. Your breakthroughs are done because people ask questions, and they ask better questions. And I give 2 examples. Again, it doesn't show. I think the PDF version actually does it. The one is Einstein actually very famous for his thought experiment, right? He thinks about, what if I wrote a beam of light? And, it was in his thesis paper, right? It eventually led him to thinking about the theory of relativity. And I don't have these things. I mean, I just found it very intriguing, but it led him to do something that has really transformed and impacted the way we think, right? And that has been wondrous for humanity. Yeah, don't worry. Okay. And okay, so why do we, and I want to say breakthroughs, therefore leads to us having better quality in our lives. I think, and that all starts from asking better questions, right? Now, when we look at ambiguity, and maybe just back to AI, AI exists in a very structured environment, meaning that it needs rules, it has data, and then what happens is, you look at a neural network, right? This is a probability-weighted set of, things that if you go through it, you have a certain set of outcomes. And it is deterministic, right? For the folks who are computer science and all that. So you have an outcome that is determined by a set of rules. But in life, actually, none of this exists, right? I mean, life is actually very uncertain, right? Life is often very contradictory. 2 things can be true at the same time, and they're complete opposites, right? And then the third thing is, when it comes to certain things where you have incomplete data, when if a lot of more things that are at play, then it's very difficult. And these are things why, and these are the reasons why you need the ability to judge, right? And I'll provide two examples. One is maybe closer to people in the businesses. When you are a CEO, for example, and you're deciding whether should I invest $50 million and build a factory in, let's say, China, then the questions you need to ask is it going to give me returns in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And within that time frame, anything can happen. You could have trade wars, you could have the macro cycles, and you could have things like, and this is real, because a lot of CEOs say, hey, maybe I'm not around by that time, So the question that happens are things that, if you try to put this through AI, you're not going to get a good answer, right? I mean, or the answer doesn't make sense to you, right? So what the CEO does is dealing with incomplete data and still having to make a decision, largely based on experience with intuition. Number two, and this is also, I have doctor friends. I think there are a lot of medical treatments that exist. It could be effective, but it comes with a lot of consequences. And oftentimes, the doctor has to weigh between what is effective, but it might not be in the best interest of the patient, right? So the thing is, this is not easy, because at the end of it, I like to think that most doctors will act on the best interest of the patient. But you will not necessarily trust a machine to do that. I know I won't. I mean, that's clearly, right? Maybe it thinks it's the best thing for me, but, it does not know the rest of the dimensions that makes what quality of life means, right? So I think judgment in itself, right, when everything is ambiguous, when it's unclear, then judgment becomes very important. And this is really based on, you need to base it on your value system. You also need to base it on, sometimes when it's incomplete, your gut feel. Also, when it comes to ethics, what is the right thing to do? I think that's very, very key. And this is the second human skill I think that's going to be key. And then the third one, right, is creating meaning. AI really is, again, based on patterns. And you do need the humans to really think about how do you challenge this. I think it's repetitive from the first one, but it's slightly different. Let me explain why. The concept of meaning, there is, and the example I'll give you, right, is a gentleman called Galileo Galilei, right? He's the person who says, and this has been the gospel for the long time, right, that everything revolves around planet Earth, right? And he says, no, that's not true. He has done a number of observations. He thinks it's not. That's not the end of the story. The story begins when he's so insistent and he thinks it's right. This is, and unfortunately, this is a pretty sad story, because he was put under house arrest and he died in house arrest. But it was something that is meaningful to him, and therefore he carried through. That is moral courage. And that, again, your machine doesn't have. Number two, the ability to see beyond your current paradigms. And this is a negative example. Many people do not know that Kodak actually invented the digital camera. And you have to be wondering, hey, you invented the digital camera, but you were not able to take advantage of it. I think one of those things is when you are immersed with a set of patterns, if you will, and the default, it is very common for you to believe that that is reality. But the ability to see beyond it, I think, is super critical. One, for innovation, but really, number two, for meaning, right? Again, meaning is something that I think is something that only humans can do, right? It ties into your values, your purpose, the way you grow up, right? Those things, are different. I mean, the machines will try to understand, but our value system in Singapore is different from India, is different from China, is different from the US. So which is the right one? The machines will not know, right? So I'm thankful that at least now the format is all right. My call to action to everyone in this room, right, is very simple. I think I suggest 3 different skills, right? And I'm not saying that they are the right ones. But really, I think what we need to do is to cultivate the curiosity, right? To ask better questions. And that starts from us being inquisitive, right? Reframing our questions about what, and a bit of that challenge, if you will, right? developing judgment. Be comfortable with ambiguity. The ability to make incomplete information, I think, is something that only humans can do, and is reality. That's what life is, right? And machines can't do that. And the third thing is creating meaning. And this is very crucial, because the thing is you need to have a purpose. And as a consultant, I was 15 years a consultant. I worked 30 years. For the first 15 years of my consulting years, I tell my customer, right? You know, technology, including AI, can help you optimize your outcomes. But only you can decide what is worth optimizing for and why you are optimizing. And a lot of times it could be, you know, the good of the employees. It does not have to be a single track objective, right? So I think that's important, because the meaning and the culture, it ties into your company culture, your organization culture. These things are important. We have to think about it, right? So, and I think these are going to be more valuable and not less as you move along. And I apologize again, but the format is not correct. But let me read this, right? I want to leave you with a quote that I think is really, really appropriate.
Let me adjust it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Clara. The task is, and it's by a gentleman called Erwin Schrödinger. The task is not so much to see what no one has yet seen, but to think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees. And that wraps up what I just said, right? I think if you think about AI, machines, AI knows everything. AI sees everything. Every single piece of data that is on the internet, on your social media, in Reddit, they know. And so therefore, I think what's left for us as humans, our task, is to think differently about what has been seen. And I think that will remain our value in the new AI era. And thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. I really appreciate and privileged to be here. I apologize for the backgrounds, but you know, we'll try to make sure that we get you a copy of it. Thank you. Oh, sorry. The last part, if you want to connect with me, I'm leaving my LinkedIn as well as my email address. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan, and I apologize. Ivan did wonderful slides, but it is our fault when we merged the slides. We were probably not careful with the content. And can I invite all the speakers up back to the stage? So we will have the panel sessions and also to answer your questions. Since we have about 25 minutes, I would start with answering your question with those with a higher vote. And for those who want to ask more questions, this is the QR code, so you can type in the questions and you can also see what other questions there are in the list, okay? So, probably this is a bit more for Sudhir. So the first question, it's been more than 20 years since the government officially introduced 5 days work week. What would move the needle to a shorter work week for society?
I think moving to a shorter work week is work in progress. This is an industrial construct of 100 years. So it's not going to happen next week. I think we should be realistic about that. I think what gives us spark and positive hope is the documented and credible studies that industries and governments have done in various parts of the world. From an industry point of view, I explained the Microsoft's experiment in Japan, which was very, very good. And also the interventions that the governments in Nordics like Iceland, Sweden, Norway have taken. So that builds a kind of a process and also a thinking model that we can now scale it. What I see will happen in steps is that this 6-week work or 5-week work will become first hybrid work, and it has already happened. For example, in my department, I encourage, for example, quota carriers, which are sort of like salespeople, is that your KPI is to get the orders. You don't even need to work for, if you can meet your quota by working only 6 days in a month, it's fine, right? So they don't need to work for even so the KPI has changed, and I think that's what will continuously happen department by department, that the KPIs will be output driven, and then presence will not be performance. I think governments are also getting involved around policy and governance, because topics like mental health, burnout is creating a lot of friction already. Yeah, and with high inflation, it is additional stress. So I feel a combination of interventions around policy, governance, industry, case studies, and overall this thought that we were built for well-being is all getting concentrated, and I think we will see positive outcomes of less work per week, yeah, happening in steps in the next few years. Already started actually.
Thank you. So the next question, probably.
Specific question on that.
Yes.
So everything is relative, and in this time, and we are borderless. The examples that you cited, Iceland, Japan. Sorry, the examples you've cited, Iceland, Japan, Norway. These are all socialist countries where there is a big effort by the government to take care, in fact, of the people. What we're seeing in other countries, like the US in particular, is a widening and yawning inequality gap. Because comparative advantage of nations will mean that, all the jobs will go to where it's cheapest. So even though we in Singapore, for example, can go to the 2-day work week, what's going to stop, loads of others from coming in, taking the jobs and so on, until, there's no way we can stop it, but I really believe that there is going to be a fundamental shift which will actually change the inequality, and it will just keep growing.
Yeah, it's a political question, so but I like to answer it in a different manner. Do you know how many hours a pilot works in a month? A pilot. Guess? A pilot works 60 hours in a month only, because the regulation says like that, right? But does that mean that now pilots is only working 60 hours in a month? Is that, like, you can say that if we work now only for 2 days in a work, what will happen to security guards? Yeah, then who is going to take care of the building? No, in a week, because productivity now improves, you can hire more security guards. So there will be security guard only for 2 days, and now you hire three more, and you redistribute work. Same is happening in the airline industry, right? So you have more and more pilots because you have to run the run. So easiest way of defeating inequality ultimately is activism, policy, regulation, and awareness. And I think the session like this is to create awareness, is that it's no more needed as a worker if you know your rights, and if you know that you can create the output in lesser time. I think you have to advocate for it. And then I think this can scale. All previous disruptions that we had, I think they succeeded or failed was because of not the bulk of the people, but someone creating a spark, creating awareness, and then scaling it and proving that the use case works. So
I'll probably interject. I think it's a very relevant topic. It came up before, right? You're right. I think the experiments are in socialist countries, right? Because the ideology of most of the world is capitalist, right? And therefore, basic economics are breaking down. I think there is going to be a period of disruption. I think there's an adjustment that's required. And this discussion about universal income, I'm not even sure whether it's going to be acceptable for most countries, especially, the fact that, not everyone is a socialist country. Sometimes, and it's a continuum, right? The question is how far you are swing. But again, I think what Sudhir is maybe mentioning is that, at the end of it, if the population is looking at, jobs and all that, then maybe there's some adjustment that will happen, whether it's universal income or finding ways to make employment more palatable. Sorry, that's related to your question, right? But I don't think we have the answers here. It's going to take a long time for us to adjust to it. Thanks.
Well, the next question is going to challenge most of us, all of us. The focus of all the speakers today are white-collar jobs. But what about routine blue-collar jobs? Will AI replace what happened to blue-collar jobs? Go ahead.
Am I audible? No.
Turn on.
It's on, right? Oh, I'll just use this. Yeah. So the promise of AI that all the big companies are selling everyone is that you would not need to do these white collar jobs fundamentally. AI will replace everyone, right? And then the only jobs remain are blue collar jobs until they say the robots come after you, right? So that's the movie that is being sold to everyone. I believe very strongly that AI today, the way it is being built, as of today, is not going. Nothing of this is going to happen. White collar jobs are going to increase because, and people will become more productive because of automation. And obviously, the plumber will still be needed to come to fix your toilet. There will be a guy who will need to come and drill holes in your wall, whatever. So the blue collar jobs will still stay. And in fact, they will be more secure. And to the point that was raised previously, I think as people become freer to do more of these jobs, different kind of things that they explore, and as white collar jobs become less attractive because the pay goes down and there is a compression in that part of the economy, I think more and more people will do different things towards doing real jobs in real world, right? And that's what, in fact, my dad keeps telling me that I'm not a real engineer because I only code on the computer and don't build hardware. So more people will do real world things. I think more people will be able to fix tube lights, etc., etc. So, and one of the most interesting things for me as a person from outside Singapore is like when I see Singaporeans having the opportunity to go and learn new skills using Skills Future, which are more hardware driven, like cooking skills, etc., etc. This is quite cool actually. And I find this is going to be what provides a lot more value in the long term.
Okay, thank you, Jatin. This comes, maybe, Ivan, you can advise. What skills do students need in the new era of AI?
I think the skills are going to change because I think what I presented is jobs, the nature of the jobs are going to change, right? What's required is also changing. But in itself, if I reflect, right, I came from School of Computing 30 years ago when I graduated, and I don't think anything that I learned was like particularly relevant. Yeah. In fact, it's probably not relevant after a few years, right? But the thing that is inculcated in your education is not the content, it is the ability to think, right? It is the ability for you to then understand how to change. So that part I think is going to remain. But I'm not going to dodge the question. I think the thing is, what skills are needed? I think I highlighted the things that, whether it's empathy, the ability to judge, the ability to ask better questions, these things needs to be done in school. And I'm sometimes frustrated, and that it's not being done, right? And not a lot of our school system actually can, and this not to ding the MOE, we should ask the students to challenge, right, what is being taught. Not to be destructive, but Really, if you don't inculcate that curiosity at the early stage, there's no way you can do that when you're working, right? So I think that needs to start very young. I think that skills needs to be there. We need to encourage that reframing, that curiosity. We also need to allow alternate answers, because I've seen cases where, oh, the answer is A and it's only A, And I don't know why, because the thing is, maybe in the real world there's more than A that is the answer. But that is, I think, something that we need to have a revamp, the skills. But really, I don't have all the answers, but if we focus on the things that AI is going to be good at, that's probably wrong. We just need to look at what we can be much better and use AI to augment our skills.
I have a question for Jatin. Is AI only for big company? How do you convince all these small business owners to really adopt and trust what you are proposing?
So the what we've realized and what we've learned, the trick is not to tell them to adopt AI. The trick is to tell them that this is going to help you make more money. Right, so in fact, even in our company domain, we do not have an AI. We do not talk about AI. We just tell them, you whatever you want, you write an email and the job will be done for you. We are going to provide you a person to do your job, right? And this person, the only thing you cannot do with this person is to get on a video call. So yeah, so it's essentially what we're trying to say is that our experience is that people do not adopt a technology because it is very difficult to make change. And with generative AI, and the faster you can build a website for someone, build a software for someone, make those changes, they start believing. You faster they are able to run an email campaign and get sales, they start believing. So everything, speed solves everything fundamentally, right? And generative AI helps to enable that. So we do not sell AI as a solution. We sell to them a workflow and to solve their problems. How we do it, it doesn't really matter. But the secret sauce for us is generative AI. Yeah.
Sudhir, should we make AI more human?
Answer is yes. Of course, we have to make AI human because at the end of the day, we want to flourish as humans, right? Somebody says that there is no meaning of life, but I think one of the tasks for all of us is that in a transitional lifetime that we get is that how do we add value and how do we create meaning, as Ivan explained. And I think there, since AI is a reality and it in the best case stays a complementary tool and does not substitute us at scale, it's important for us to make AI human. So how do you make AI human? To be concrete, I think there are three dimensions. First is that we need to eliminate bias. AI gets trained on data that has been left over by all of us. The way we tweet, the way we post, that's what AI picks up and gets trained on. And there is a lot of bias in our thinking. Bias against color, race, creed, minorities, right? And that is getting reflected in the outputs that AI creates. I have this example. When I was working on a vision model, and this model identifies the person in a model, and the model was not able to identify people with blacker shade of color, but was able to only identify with accuracy people who had white skin. It's because in the training model, most of the pictures that were used to train the model were American people. George W. Bush had the most of the pictures that came up in the model were from George W. Bush, and I told them this is a Bush model, this is not a human model. Right? So that's the first dimension of making AI human, is to eliminate the bias that is in the training data that we, all of us, are responsible for creating that bias. I think the second dimension of making AI human is to make it inclusive. Now, AI currently is the talk and the hype in 7 or 10 countries in the world, and most of the global south is left out of it, which includes countries in Southeast Asia and also in Asia, right? So it can become a situation where we have now two worlds, the world with AI and world without AI, right? So that we have to figure out is to really distribute it in such a manner that it becomes a tool for everyone and not only for the elite and the rich. That's the second dimension of it. I think the third dimension of it is to do audit performance for the outputs and to really understand if the outputs that AI creates are fair, right? And there are techniques of measuring the fairness of a model, measuring the transparency of a model. So that all can be done. I think combination of these measures can make AI can never ever become human because we have consciousness and empathy and emotions, which is very difficult for AI to get. Yeah, some people say that they will become conscious tomorrow. That is snake oil, right? That's not going to happen. So I think our position in the value chain will stay relevant. If anyone can destroy that, I think it's us.
Do I consider that as your final advice?
I think my book talks about it. I think so. So that's the advice I try to give.
Jatin, do you have something, an advice to the audience?
No, so just to add to this point, I do not want to advise because I mean I don't think that's the right thing to do from my side because I don't have anything much to say apart from my experience with SMEs. But I think just to add to that point, like on do we want to make AI human? I think this is a personal gripe. I hate it, and I'm sharing it with you. Please bear with me for a minute. So we do want to make AI human with all the qualities that Sudhir just shared. We want it to work with humans as a collaborator. But what we really should not waste time doing is to make it look like human. What I mean by that is that on the internet, we see so much stuff, people trying to build humanoid robots to do human jobs. That is not what it is. That's not where the real value is. We already have robots all around us. We have cars, we have vacuum cleaners. They are fit for the job. We have drones, we have all of these robots. They do not need to look like humans. Amazon has been having robots for like donkey's years now, who are in the warehouse trying to pack your parcels. So this obsession of making AI more human should stick to qualities and not physical appearance. And I think if that is one takeaway you can take, I think if you can start thinking on these lines, that would be like the world would be much better, I think.
And Ivan.
Yeah, sorry, it's working,
Please,
right? Yeah, I think I'll just say this. I think there's a lot of fear and excitement around AI. I think it's very natural. I do believe that, we'll find a way past it. I don't think it will be joblessness. I think there'll be a job shift. I think this could come in a number of other ways, but I think as a society, we'll evolve to adapt to these changes. But, same as what I spoke about, I think is really to really build the skills that AI can't do right now, because we really should be looking at AI as to augment us and amplify what we have, right? And I think technology is neutral. We just need to make sure that we tap on it to do greater good. And for most of human history, we have done that. So I think we should be optimistic about it.
And personally, I really support that. We really need to really develop our human skills. Instead of talking about high performance, we talk about high agency in human skills. So thank you for all the speakers for your provoking talks. And thank you all of you who are so engaging and sending in all these questions. So instead of saying what is left for us, I would suggest we ask, what is more from us? Okay? So the answers lies in our willingness to learn and keep learning. We're going to exercise really our curiosity, our human strength, and be open-minded and stay adapted. I mean, none of us is magicians to know what is going to happen in the next 10 years, 20 years. But what we are prepared is to keep enhancing our skills to get ready. And in ISS, we take a lot of effort. Besides training, digital skills, we infuse all kind of human skills, problem-solving skills, empathy, curiosity, critical thinking into a curriculum. So I hope and look forward to you coming to us and do the learning together. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for taking the time to attend this session. If I could